Hogan's Heroes was more than just a groundbreaking sitcom. It was a masterful blend of humor and wartime drama that captivated millions with its unforgettable characters. But behind the laughter on screen lay a series of real-life tragedies that few could have anticipated. Many of the show's leading actors faced heartbreaking fates, crippling illnesses, devastating accidents, and sudden, unexplained deaths that still remain shrouded in mystery. Behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, their lives were marked by sorrow, misfortune, and untimely ends that left fans in shock. In this deep dive, we uncover the dark truths behind Hogan's Heroes, revealing the tragic destinies of its beloved cast. They dedicated their lives to entertainment, yet their personal stories took chilling turns that no one saw coming. Join us as we explore the haunting, untold tales behind one of television's most iconic shows. Bob Crane, born in 1928, was a man whose natural charisma and sharp comedic timing made him a beloved television icon. Best known for his role as Colonel Robert Hogan in Hogan's Heroes, Crane's portrayal of the quick-thinking, daring leader of Allied prisoners inside a German POW camp turned him into a household name. Before Hogan's Heroes, he found success as a radio host in Los Angeles and later as a television actor in shows like The Donna Reed Show. However, his charm on screen masked a much darker reality behind the scenes. His marriage to and Terzian produced 3 children but ended in divorce in 1970, as his growing obsession with extramarital affairs and pornography drove a wedge between them. He later married his Hogan's Heroes co-star Sigrid Valdis, Patricia Olson, but their marriage, too, was filled with tension and jealousy. Crane became deeply involved in a sordid lifestyle, frequently recording his sexual encounters with women, often facilitated by his friend, John Henry Carpenter. His once promising career faded, leading him to perform in dinner theater productions to make ends meet. On June 29, 1978, while staying in an apartment in Scottsdale, Arizona, he was found brutally murdered, bludgeoned to death with an unknown weapon, his bedsheets soaked in blood. The crime remains one of Hollywood's most infamous unsolved mysteries, with Carpenter long suspected but never convicted. The tragic end of Bob Crane, once a star filled with humor and energy, remains shrouded in scandal, forever staining his legacy. Ivan Dixon was born in 1931, a man of immense talent and deep intelligence, yet his journey was marked by shadows that never fully lifted. He graced the screen as the brilliant and steadfast Sergeant James Kinchloe, the communications expert among Hogan's crew, a role that stood as a rare beacon of representation for black actors in a time of deep-seated industry prejudice. Beyond Hogan's Heroes, Dixon took on powerful roles in Nothing But a Man, 1964, and The Final War of Ollie Winter, 1967, etching his name into history as both an actor and a pioneering director. Yet, his personal life was far from the victories he portrayed on screen. Though he married Burley Dixon, their journey together was one of endurance rather than joy, fraught with the challenges of racial and professional struggles. His final years were spent in the relentless grip of kidney failure, a cruel affliction that stole away his strength piece by piece. In 2008, the light in his eyes dimmed forever as he passed away in a hospice in Charlotte, North Carolina, leaving behind a legacy overshadowed by the loneliness that often accompanies pioneers ahead of their time. Leon Askin was born in 1907, a man whose destiny was entwined with the horrors of history. The world knew him as the formidable General Albert Burkhalter, the unrelenting yet often comical Nazi officer whose bark was worse than his bite. But the man behind the uniform carried wounds far deeper than his audience could ever fathom. A native of Vienna, Austria, he was forced to flee the rise of Hitler, leaving behind a family that would ultimately perish in the Holocaust. This loss haunted him for the rest of his days, an unshakable specter lurking behind every performance. Despite his comic presence in Hogan's Heroes, Askin's heart carried a grief that never truly faded. His acting career spanned decades, with roles in The Robe, 1953, and Airplane 2, the sequel, 1982, yet no amount of accolades could erase the tragedies that defined his life. Though he found love, marriage was a fleeting comfort, and he spent much of his later years in solitude. In 2005, his weary body finally succumbed to illness in his beloved Vienna, where he had returned to spend his final days. Though the world remembered him for laughter, his life was a testament to sorrow. Sigrid Valdis was born in 1935, a woman of striking beauty and quiet tragedy. To audiences, she was the alluring and enigmatic Hilda, the trusted secretary of Colonel Klink in Hogan's Heroes, a role that gave her a brief moment in the spotlight. But behind the camera, her life was shaped by heartbreak and loss. Born Patricia Olson, she married young, only to be widowed early, left alone to raise a child. Fate would lead her to Hogan's Heroes, where she fell deeply in love with Bob Crane, the show's charismatic star. Their marriage in 1970 seemed like a new beginning, but happiness was fleeting. Crane's life spiraled into scandal, and in 1978, he was found brutally murdered in a crime that remains unsolved, leaving Sigrid shattered. The years that followed were filled with solitude, as she withdrew from Hollywood and the memories it held. In 2007, cancer claimed her life in Anaheim, California. Though she had once been adored by millions, she spent her final years far from the limelight, carrying the weight of a love story that ended in blood and sorrow. Howard Kane was born in 1926, a gifted character actor whose face was known to many, though his burdens were carried alone. As the ruthless yet perpetually frustrated Major Hochstetter, he brought a commanding presence to Hogan's Heroes, his voice ringing with authority and menace. But away from the screen, he was a man caught between identities, struggling to find peace. Born Howard Cohen, he had reinvented himself in pursuit of success, mastering dialects and slipping into roles with uncanny ease. His career flourished with parts in Judgment at Nuremberg, 1961, and The Man from UNCLE, yet stability always seemed just out of reach. A devoted father, he loved his children dearly, but the demands of Hollywood left little room for personal happiness. His health declined in later years, and in 1993, he suffered a fatal heart attack in North Hollywood, his final moments spent in the city that had given him fame but never fulfillment. His was a life of transformations, but in the end, no role could shield him from the loneliness that awaited. Werner Klemperer, born in 1920, carried the weight of history on his shoulders. The son of legendary conductor Otto Klemperer, he was born into a world of classical music and prestige. But in 1935, his Jewish family was forced to flee Nazi Germany, leaving behind their home, heritage, and status. After immigrating to the United States, he served in the U.S. Army during World War II before turning to acting. Despite initially taking on serious dramatic roles, fate led him to his most iconic part as Colonel Wilhelm Klink in Hogan's Heroes. A comedic role, he only agreed to play under the condition that Klink would always be portrayed as an inept fool, ensuring the show never glorified the Nazis. Off-screen, Klemperer struggled with personal demons. His first marriage to Susan Dempsey ended in divorce, and though he later remarried actress Kim Hamilton, loneliness seemed to shadow his life. He continued acting on stage and screen, but the specter of his father's legacy and the painful memories of exile never truly left him. Diagnosed with cancer in his later years, he endured a slow decline before passing away on December 6, 2000. While he was celebrated for his contributions to entertainment and his advocacy for Jewish causes, there was always a lingering sorrow behind his eyes. A man who had lived through exile, war, and the burden of being forever associated with a character from a painful chapter of history. Cynthia Lynn, born 1937, was best known for her role as Helga, the alluring secretary to Colonel Klink in Hogan's Heroes. Her beauty and charm lit up the screen, but behind the Hollywood glitz lay a life marked by unfulfilled love and personal sorrows. Born in Latvia, she and her mother fled to the United States during World War II, a harrowing journey that shaped her resilience but left emotional scars. Cynthia found brief stardom, but her acting career faded quickly after Hogan's Heroes, leading to struggles with financial insecurity. She was romantically linked to Marlon Brando, a relationship that, though passionate, ended in heartbreak. Her later years were plagued by illness, and she passed away in 2014 due to complications from hepatitis. A life once vibrant and full of promise ended in quiet suffering, a silent echo of the bright lights that once shone upon her. John Cedar, born 1931, brought humor and subtle wit to Hogan's Heroes as Corporal Carl Langenscheidt, one of the many bumbling German soldiers at Stalag 13. Yet his real-life story was one of struggle and perseverance. Born in Detroit, his passion for acting led him to Hollywood, where he found modest success, though never reaching the heights he dreamed of. His career extended beyond Hogan's Heroes, with roles in Death Hunt, 1981, and The Manitou, 1978, but it was behind the scenes as a writer and producer that he found his longest-lasting work. His marriage to Barbara Cedar was long but filled with professional hardships, and their life together was often overshadowed by financial and career disappointments. As the years passed, his health declined, and he succumbed to leukemia in 2011. The stage lights dimmed on a man who dedicated his life to the craft, leaving behind a legacy of overlooked brilliance and quiet suffering. John Banner, born in 1910, was a man whose life was marked by both humor and sorrow. Best remembered for his portrayal of Sergeant Hans Schultz in Hogan's Heroes, he played the bumbling, lovable German guard whose famous catchphrase, "I know nothing," became iconic. Ironically, Banner was a Jewish Austrian who had fled his homeland in the wake of Nazi persecution, leaving behind a world that would soon be consumed by war. His escape to America saved his life, but the rest of his family perished in concentration camps, a tragedy that weighed heavily on him. Despite his comedic success, Banner never fully escaped the pain of his past. His personal life was quiet, yet behind closed doors, he carried the scars of loss and displacement. He found solace in acting, appearing in films such as Operation Eichmann, 1961, and The Interns, 1962, yet his health began to decline as he aged. In 1973, during a visit to his birthplace of Vienna, Austria, he suffered a sudden abdominal hemorrhage and passed away on his 63rd birthday. A man who once made millions laugh with his portrayal of ignorance had, in reality, been a witness to some of history's darkest moments, leaving behind a legacy tinged with both laughter and profound tragedy. Robert Clary, born in 1926, knew the depths of human suffering like few others could. Before he became beloved as the witty and resilient Corporal Louis LeBeau on Hogan's Heroes, Clary endured the unimaginable. He was a survivor of the Holocaust. Born into a large Jewish family in France, he was deported to the Nazi concentration camps at the age of 16, where his parents and most of his siblings were murdered. His survival was a cruel twist of fate. His singing talent allowed him to entertain SS officers, momentarily sparing him from death. After the war, he rebuilt his life, moving to the United States to pursue a career in entertainment. He appeared in films like 10 Tall Men, 1951, and A New Kind of Love, 1963, but his role on Hogan's Heroes cemented his place in television history. Despite his comedic success, Clary never fully escaped the ghosts of his past. His marriages and personal relationships were marked by the silent burden of his survival. And though he found love with Natalie Cantor-Metzger, daughter of Eddie Cantor, the shadow of war always lingered. He spent his later years educating others about the horrors of the Holocaust, determined to ensure that history never repeated itself. But time, relentless and unyielding, finally claimed him on November 16, 2022, at the age of 96. He had outlived so many, endured so much, yet in the end, even the strongest voices must fall silent. His story, however, remains a testament to both resilience and the unrelenting cruelty of fate. Richard Dawson, born in 1932, was a man whose quick wit and charm brought joy to millions, yet his personal life was filled with unspoken sorrows. Before he became known as the cunning Corporal Peter Newkirk in Hogan's Heroes, Dawson served in the British Merchant Navy, a turbulent start to a life that would later be defined by fame and heartbreak. His charisma landed him roles in films like King Rat, 1965, and The Running Man, 1987, but it was television that made him a household name. After Hogan's Heroes, he became the legendary host of Family Feud, where his signature kisses and smooth demeanor captivated audiences. However, behind the charming exterior, Dawson endured a fractured personal life. His marriage to actress Diana Dors, once Britain's answer to Marilyn Monroe, ended in divorce, leaving him estranged from his eldest son for years. Though he later found love again with Gretchen Johnson, whom he met on Family Feud, the shadows of his past never fully faded. In his final years, he battled esophageal cancer, a cruel affliction that stole his voice and vitality. On June 2, 2012, he passed away, leaving behind a legacy of laughter that masked a life filled with quiet struggles and painful separations. Larry Hovis, born in 1936, was a man of many talents, an actor, a singer, a writer, but despite his gifts, he never found the recognition he truly deserved. As the explosive expert Sergeant Andrew Carter in Hogan's Heroes, Hovis brought an endearing innocence to the role, yet his career never soared as high as it should have. Before his television fame, he had tried to make it as a singer, performing in groups like the Mascots and appearing on The Gary Moore Show. However, Hollywood was an unforgiving place, and even after Hogan's Heroes, he struggled to find leading roles. His marriage to Carol Hollingsworth lasted, but the pressures of an unfulfilled career took their toll. He turned to teaching in his later years, working as a professor at Texas State University, shaping young minds while quietly watching the industry move on without him. Then came the diagnosis: esophageal cancer, the same cruel disease that would claim Richard Dawson years later. He fought, but the battle was short. On September 9, 2003, he slipped away, his passing barely making headlines. Forgotten by the industry he once entertained, his departure was a quiet one, a heartbreaking end for a man who had spent his life making others laugh. What do you think about the deaths of the actors from Hogan's Heroes, and who do you remember the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to catch the latest videos.